we've been expected as Black women to change ourselves so much to fit into white dominant culture. I'm a part of the Isha babies, which, if you remember, if you're aware, here that kind of has the connotation that I am a single mother on welfare with 50,000 kids and a bunch of baby daddies and all of those things and no education.
DeLisha is an author, writer, and social change agent. She amplifies the voices of Black women and is founder of Black Superwoman Chronicles. DeLisha is currently a doctoral student where she looks to tackle the lack of diversity and inclusion in leadership within nonprofits. DeLisha and I first connected on LinkedIn after I saw her repost a TikTok video from an individual who was claiming to speak on behalf of HR and suggested those with, and I quote, hood names use their middle less hood name in job applications. In today's episode, DeLisha and I discuss her experiences with a name that may invoke certain connotations, becoming comfortable with her name and correcting people when they spell or say it wrong, and becoming comfortable in her skin. Names enriched with meaning are part of one's identity and hold such importance. Welcome to That's My Name. I'm Maya Mitsko September Welford. What's your name? DeLisha, hi, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to have you on as a guest.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course. So you and I connected after I saw a post on LinkedIn. So you had reposted someone's TikTok video and they were speaking about the fact that they are judging people by their names. They're saying that if you have, and I quote, a hood name, you should actually use your middle name if that's less hood. And then when you get through the door to an interview, for example, you should start code switching. And that is basically the person's advice, get a job or how to kind of, get within the workplace. So I was really intrigued by that. I saw that you reposted it and kind of disagreed with what the TikTok video was advising. And, I read a bit of the commentary around that. And, I know that you had to get comfortable with your name. People have spelt your name wrong, said your name wrong. So I'd love to discuss that a bit more today. How did you kind of feel when you saw that TikTok video? What was your reaction?
Yeah, so I have been following a lot of HR folks on TikTok, and so that's my TikTok's kind of common to have that kind of discussion around things that are related to human resources. And so when I saw that come across my feed, I was actually taken aback by the fact that this, African American woman is essentially saying that in order to make it and get ahead, that I had to change something about myself that is just so, it's with you from the moment you're born. And so I definitely disagreed with that. I definitely felt like message, especially in the climate that we're in right now, and the fact that we've been expected as BIPOC folks, really. But I'll speak to my own self and my own narrative. We've been expected as Black women to change ourselves so much to fit into white dominant culture that this was just another misguided I think moment where she's probably learned that over the years and learned that throughout her own life, that in order for her to get ahead, maybe she's had to do some changing. But to continue that narrative forward for the next group of folks that start up behind me, I think that is just doing a disservice to them.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with you. And I think it's just kind of perpetuating negativity around certain groups or kind of around certain names, around certain groups that have certain names. And I think posts like that are dangerous because it's kind of just perpetuating that, rather than using the person who posted that could use her platform and use her voice to actually say, this is what's been going on, this is what's been happening. You may have been advised to change your name, but actually that's your name. It's as you said, a really important part of you and of your identity. I really agree with you on that. And I know that on your LinkedIn you had kind of said that you had to get comfortable with your name. So has that been quite a kind of journey or a process for you?
Yeah, so my name, of course, DeLisha. My middle name is Denise. And I had to get comfortable with my name being my name. And I
Hmm.
mentioned a little bit about this on LinkedIn about how my name has been aligned with some negative thoughts.
Yeah.
And as it relates to, I'm a part of the Isha babies, which if you remember, if you're aware, here that kind of has the connotation that I am a single mother on welfare
Mm,
with 50,000 kids and bunch of baby daddies and all of those things and no education. And so that's the background that folks with Isha and Quisha and Via and all of these things at the end of their names kind of are up against from the
yeah.
moment that they have these names. And so the other piece I mentioned is the fact that over the years, I would say is my earliest memories, I can remember being 5 and having grown men kind of do this sort of sexual innuendo with me regarding my
Wow.
name. And so throughout my entire life, folks have made the joke, oh, your name is delicious. Does that mean, or Delisha, does that mean that you're sweet? Like, are you delicious? And so, like,
Wow.
or, oh, like a stripper, like I've had folks actually come up and say that. And so I've
Wow.
had to, one, get tough skin and not
Mm,
allow it to injure my person, and my mental, and two, grow up and have a mouth on me that's like, no,
yeah.
you're not about to do these things. And so yeah, it's been an interesting journey with my name, but there came a point in my life I was just like, I wouldn't change it for the world
Of course.
at all, because it's all I know, and I'm
Hmm.
not real keen on going by my middle name. I rarely use it at all.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's it's quite shocking that from the age of 5, you were having comments about your name, especially like kind of maybe sexual comments or comments kind of in that way. It's quite sad, I think. It is quite sad. And you said that you had to develop a tough skin and develop resilience around that. So how have you reacted when people behave quite negatively towards your name?
Yeah, and just kind of going back on the young piece, I think there is a huge thing that relates to Black girls, that we are essentially adultified very early
Mm,
on. So we think about that whole piece and how Black girls are seen as older when they're younger, and our
mm-hmm.
bodies are more criticized. And so when I think about that, it kind of aligns with that thinking in terms of
Okay.
how folks have treated my name. So I do want to name that piece. I have recently just kind of started to get really comfortable with not only my name but also my hair texture and how I show up
Yeah.
in white dominant spaces. And so
Yeah.
I would say there was a good friend of mine, Mallory Hodge, who works with me at my full time, and she is one of the Black women that I remember meeting at my current job, where I was like, wow, she's got like this reddish purple hair, and she's got this fro, and she's just
Mm,
so proud, and she's got this accent, which I usually have an accent, and I
mm-hmm.
like code switching. And I was like, there's a
Yeah.
lot. Even now, I can hear myself like code switching it off, and
Yeah.
so it's women like her and other women that I was able to be around in my current environment, other Black women, that I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't shorten my name, because that was one of the things that I did a lot of, was shortening it from Delisha to just say, hey, call me D, because I don't have time
Okay.
to correct you all day about my name and get 6 different variations of it. But at some point in the last few, I think in the pandemic, I was like, hey, I'm gonna not go by D anymore. I'm going by my
Yeah.
full name, because I should be able to fully show up at work and be comfortable in my own skin.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just no longer going to subscribe that you can't say my name. If I have to onboard, a bunch of people with a bunch of different names that I'm not necessarily used to saying, it takes nothing for me to stop and say, hey, how do you pronounce your name before beginning? And then actively reminding myself and using my muscle memory to make sure that I get it correct every time. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's kind of how I've combated. I've kind of just decided that screw everybody. I'm just going to go by what it is that I want to go by, wear my hair the way I want to wear it, dye it the color I want to dye it. And
Yeah.
you're either
Of
going to
course.
accept that or you're not.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think what I picked up there is that, having other people that look like you, that sound like you within the workplace is so important. That kind of, having others that you can either look up to, or be role models, or feel like you're actually represented within the workplace or within society too. I think that's super, super important. And what I also heard from you there is the fact that, it's way more than like just a name. It's, who you are, it's your identity, it's, your kind of background. So I think, well, I guess by you kind of owning your name, or feeling empowered to kind of own your name, it's kind of giving that message that, you do belong in the workplace, and that's like all of you that belongs in the workplace, not this kind of version of you that feels like you have to kind of conform to kind of what the workplace is structured like. So I think that's super, super important, definitely. And have your experiences kind of influenced how you've named your children?
Yeah, so my kids, I have a daughter and a son, and they both have what I would consider easy to pronounce names.
Okay.
But my naming them didn't really, it didn't really influence, my name didn't influence how I named them. So my daughter's name is Leah, and we kind of, that wasn't even supposed to be her name. Her name was supposed to be Layla, and her grandmother actually is responsible for naming her. I just wanted to
Oh,
make sure that her middle name had a biblical
yeah.
attachment to it. And then my
Hmm.
son, I always tell folks the joke that my son's name came from his dad, and he named him after a video game, actually.
Okay.
And so it had nothing to do, like, it was just
Yeah.
like, I want to, this is the name. And then his middle name, of course, comes from his father's best friend who passed from MS. And
Okay.
so,
Yeah.
which also has a biblical name to it as well. And so that was kind of how their names came about.
Hmm.
If I found a name that had an Isha that I liked and felt like it was, something I wanted to name,
Hmm.
my daughter, or something else for my son, I definitely would have done so without batting an eye.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the names that kind of generated from other folks.
Yeah. 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 No, that makes sense. They're lovely names. So I know that you mentioned that you haven't kind of necessarily changed your name, and you've, on your CV or during job applications. Have you ever considered doing this?
No. And so it was interesting to get that side of it. So
Yeah.
like I mentioned before, I am a doctoral student at the University of Dayton, and my dissertation is right now supposed to be on code switching.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
I just, in reading through the literature, one of the things I found is that people actually do this. They do kind of like
Yeah.
a whiteness, ethnic cleansing, I think is what someone referred to it in one of the literature reviews, where they erase ethnic sounding organizations from their resume, as well as shorten their name to
Wow.
the first letter, and then using their middle name, or just starting with their middle name. And I had never heard of that concept before.
Yeah.
Because that's just not something I would ever consider doing, even in the most uncomfortable periods with my name and me
Yeah.
dealing and working through that. I've never thought about changing my name on any document to
Mm,
say anything. Now I might let you shorten it,
yeah.
but that's something that my family shortens my name. Like, my family
Yeah.
doesn't really
Yeah.
call my name, so I'm used to the shortened variation. But never would I ever think to change something about myself on my resume, because my skills speak for themselves.
Yeah.
Like,
Of course.
who I am as an employee speaks for itself, and the work that I do speaks for itself. So if you can't get past the fact that my name ends in Isha, then I probably don't need to be in that environment.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And do you ever think that you have been kind of disadvantaged because of your name? I don't know, it's probably might be difficult to know, but do you think that you've ever kind of missed out on a job opportunity or something like that because of your name?
Yeah, so I would assume, I'm gonna assume yes, because I am
Okay.
a Black
Yeah.
woman working in
Yeah.
America, and I know
Mm-hmm.
and have experienced discrimination.
Mm,
My mother's name is Diane,
yeah.
and she talks about when she was going on job interviews. Her name is a what we would consider a standard name, and when she
Yeah.
would show up, they'd be surprised because she
Mm,
wasn't a white woman. And that's what they were expecting by her phone presence and her name. And so I think that my name is actually a great advantage that I have, because
Yeah.
up front, you already know that I am a Black person. I'm at least a person of color. You at least can tell that from my name specifically. That's the way I've always felt. Other folks might feel differently. But I've always felt you at least know that I'm a person of color from my name. And so that kind of allows you to make the determination of whether or not you are going to pull me in for an interview or discriminate against me based off my name. And so I think before I even get to the job itself, a lot of those folks decide for me whether or not they're willing to have me come in, or they're, the name is a deterrent and they don't want to deal with it. And so I'm grateful for that fact, because I'm pretty sure that's probably saved me from a lot of different pointless interviews. But yeah, no, I would say that more than likely, I'm pretty sure that's probably been a discriminating factor, but there are so many other things. I'm a darker skinned Black woman. I've had comments about, oh my God, you write so well, microaggressions. And there's just so many different things that I think I can think of that I can actively name as discriminatory, that the name piece probably happens, but I wouldn't know.
Yeah. And I guess this is kind of maybe a bit off topic, but linked to kind of what you've just spoken about, the whole kind of, discrimination piece and experiencing microaggressions. Do you think that things have been improving over kind of your working life? Have you seen a kind of positive shift? Have you seen things get worse? Thinking back now to your name, does it have a meaning?
Yeah, so I don't know how true this is. I have definitely, whenever I type my name in, I'm like looking for a meaning. It translates in Latin to DeLisha, which means delightful. So the spelling of my name is just a variation of that name, which ends up meaning delightful. And I always tell folks my middle name means goddess of wine. So I say, I guess I'm a delightful goddess of wine and I don't drink. So there's that. So that, kind of interesting how names kind of attach these meanings onto you. And it's like, that's not 100% me. But yeah.
Yeah. And do you know how your name was chosen?
So fun fact, again, my mom was in love with the series A Different World. And so, and that was a series that I grew up on as well. I definitely came from that era of, that show made me want to go to college and all that fun stuff. And so there's a character on the show named Julissa. And my mom just kept hearing that name and like getting it wrong. And so she thought that the name that they were saying all those times was DeLisha. And so that's what she ended up naming me. And because she thought it was just a very nice sounding name. But of course, as you can tell, she was obviously hearing the wrong name. And so, so that's kind of the story behind how my name came about. And I only know maybe about 2 to 3 other folks personally that have that name. What's really different, I think, that I find, I found, of course, on LinkedIn that there are other folks and on like Twitter and stuff that have my exact name. But the L is actually capital in my name, and some folks love to lowercase it, and that's not how you spell it. The L is the actual, the capital L is actually the way you spell my name, which I don't see many folks having that variation, but the name is still the same.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Interesting. And going on to the kind of like the spelling piece, people spelling your name incorrectly. Have you had any other kind of different spellings of your name?
Yes. So I will spell, my name is at the bottom of my signature and people will still get it wrong. I've had DeLeesha. I've had DeLisha. I've had someone say Felicia. Like that. When I'm on the phone, folks will call me everything. It's as if they don't hear the D. And so they automatically go with Felicia or Alicia. And it's like, nope, there's a D. And so I've gotten really good at stopping people at the beginning and saying, nope, that's not how you say that. It's actually DeLisha.
Yeah.
And just like reinforcing that so that I can feel affirmed in whatever environment I'm in, and I'm not, secretly uncomfortable or upset at the fact that my name is being spelled wrong or
Yeah.
said wrong, and still having to work or communicate in the environment. So I've gotten used to just stopping people up front.
Yeah. And how have you got any kind of tips on how to do that? Because if I think about myself, and even just this morning, I was having a conversation with someone, and she was like, "Hi, Maya," and that's not how you pronounce my name. You pronounce it Maya. And I think it's something that I personally struggle with, and it's something that I'm trying to get better at. Is I sometimes don't feel able to just kind of say, okay, my name's actually pronounced Maya. Like there's something, maybe it's a confidence thing. I don't know really what it is, but do you have any kind of tips or techniques about, how I can kind of, or how others who are listening to this can kind of correct people with the pronunciation of their names? Because I think it's so important. I think for me, if someone said it wrong the first time and I haven't corrected them, then I feel more and more and more and more awkward. The more they say my name wrong, and I'm like, oh, I wish I just kind of corrected them the first time. But yeah, do you have any tips?
Yeah, so there is a woman, and I'm praying that I don't get her name wrong, but she was on the show Orange is the New Black. I believe her name is pronounced Uzo. Aduba, and if I am saying that wrong, I apologize. But she played the character Crazy Eyes, and in her, she did an interview one day, and she said she was talking to her mother about her name, and can she just shorten it and X, Y, and Z and all these things. And her mother said to her something to the effect of, if they can pronounce Tchaikovsky or however you pronounce that name, then they are going to be able to say Uzo. And I said, you know what? You're 100% correct.
Yeah.
And I've got to go into situations with that mentality. If I am going to give it my all to pronounce names that I am not comfortable with, and part of my job is onboarding where I work. So I am the face that folks meet when they come through the door. And that means a lot of different names. We have a company that has 140 people. And so there's a lot of names. And if I'm going to, work in this space, then you've got to get my name right, and I've got to get your name right.
Yeah.
And I understand that it's an uncomfortable feeling, especially as a BIPOC person working in a white dominant environment. It can kind of be very difficult to correct someone, especially if there's power dynamics, if that person is, over you or higher up than you. And I've had that. And I had to kind of put my stamp and say, hey, that's not how you say my name. Like, you have to say my name correctly, because I've gone through years and years of trauma associated with my name. And I refuse to allow anyone to not respect me on the simple way of just pronouncing my name correctly. And I think it changes the air when you allow folks to pronounce your name incorrectly. It changes how you walk. It changes how you vibe in the space that you're in. And so it's important for me to show up in spaces that is like, no, this is my name. And I know even at my company, it took some getting used to, and still folks slip up and they'll shorten my name to D, but they'll catch themselves. And I appreciate that. Like, you're catching yourself, and I don't have to say anything, or someone else will say, it. Or I've had folks in my, doctoral classes say, to someone on the back end who said my name wrong. It happened maybe 2 weeks ago. A classmate said my name wrong, and I assumed the person on the back end messaged them because they came off speaker again. Thank that person for messaging them and saying, hey, I got your name wrong, DeLisha, and saying it right. And it all it takes is that sort of allyship as well, of folks to be able to stand with you and that know how to pronounce your name and helping you kind of get those messages across. So I would say to anyone that's having those difficulties that if you can't stand on nothing else, like Marlo Stanfield said in The Wire, your name is your name. My name is my name. That's like the foundation of how you meet me as a person, and then you get to know my name. And that's where conversations start. So if you can't get that right, then how can we go forward?
Yeah. Is there anything else on names that you'd like to share?
Yeah, no, I think when it comes to your name, write it down, say it out, correct people when they get it wrong,
Mm.
and be you, because you only have one life. And
Yeah.
if you're sitting here, worried about, your name, or allowing folks to change you, or, tell you should go buy something else, those folks don't live a day in your shoes.
Yeah.
And what worked for them won't necessarily work for you. And the lessons that we've been taught as BIPOC folks in America specifically, on how to code switch and how to show up in white
Mm.
dominant spaces, are just things that work for our parents, work for our aunts and uncles and things like that in their time. And it really didn't work then. So at some point, we've got to kind of cut that cord and decide that we're going to step out and be our full selves as much as we can be within these environments, and fight for more opportunities to be more of our full selves in these work environments, because we deserve it.
Yeah.
And your name is your name. Wear it proudly, say it proudly, and make sure that they say it correctly.
Yeah. I like that. So you've mentioned that you're doing your 5th degree and you're currently writing your dissertation, and it's focused on code switching. I would personally love to read it once you're finished, because it sounds very, very interesting. So yeah, what are you up to at the moment?
Yeah, so I know it's kind of crazy talking about 5th, degree. Actually, I have an associate's, a bachelor's, and master's, and actually have a graduate certificate
Yeah.
in teaching. And so technically, this is my 5th. Just
Yeah.
want to make
Yeah.
sure I name that, because folks are like, 5
Yeah.
degrees. What are you, like a habitual student? I am not. This is it. I'm not doing no more after this. I
You
don't
say
plan
that
to.
now.
No, I'm done. I'm not doing it. But yeah, no, like I said, being a doc student takes up a lot of my time. I also run a curated space for Black women. It's called
Okay.
Superwoman Chronicles.
Yeah.
We actually revamped it in the middle of a pandemic last year, so we just celebrated a year back in May. And
Yeah.
so that space is really, I created that space because there was a need to amplify the narratives of Black women and allow them to showcase the different sides of themselves, and kind of dispel some of these stereotypes that come out and up against Black women. And so just giving them a platform for that, and just also creating a space of advocacy for those narratives, so that they could see that they had a large community supporting them. And so I'm really excited about the work that I get to do with Black Superwoman Chronicles. It is a passion project of mine, something that I've always advocated in spaces for Black women, because I feel like our narratives become whispers, and they're not heard all the time. And so that's definitely something that I try to make sure that I give back and create space for in whatever I am doing. So that's kind of what takes up my time between that and school and being a mom and now being a fiance as of last week. I am just kind of busy.
Oh, well, congratulations on that. That's exciting.
Thank you so much.
And with Black Superwoman Chronicles, is that open to kind of Black women globally, or is it focused on kind of America? Okay,
Yes,
amazing,
no, Black,
amazing.
whoever identifies as, a Black woman,
Yeah.
from wherever you are. So I would definitely love to tap into more of, the folks overseas in the UK and other countries, to definitely showcase and share their work. And we, like I said, we do it from an amplification of their narratives through their art and culture. So that's specifically what we focus on. So poetry and short stories, visual arts and music and things like that. That's kind of what we post. And our website is bswchronicles.com, and you can follow us on Instagram at BSW Chronicles.
Amazing. Yeah, hopefully lots of people will follow. And also, I think it is a super help. I think an important and a very necessary platform. So I hope that more people, as a result of this, join. How can people connect with you? I know you've called out kind of the Instagram handle for Black Superwoman Chronicles. Is that the best way for people to connect with you? Is there any way else that people can connect?
Yeah, so you can definitely follow me on LinkedIn. I'm constantly trying to stay abreast of what's happening and post things that I find interesting, especially as it relates to DEI work, HR, ops. That's kind of my background, is in org leadership. And so I post a lot of that content. So if you're looking for that, you can definitely search me on LinkedIn. My first and last name, DeLisha Sylvester. Like I said before, BSW Chronicles on Instagram is definitely the way to go if you're looking for me. And I also have my own Instagram that's separate from that brand, and it is just my first and last name on Instagram. So if you search that, you should be able to find me as well.
Brilliant. Well, DeLisha, thank you so much for your time today, for a really, really great conversation. I've really enjoyed speaking with you. I've definitely learned a lot, and it's been very, very thought-provoking, and has given me some stuff to reflect on. So thank you so much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Yeah, so with microaggressions, here's the thing. The thing about them is that there are some that are really blatant, and then there are some that folks just don't know because they come second nature to them.
Okay.
And so I think about like the comment I just made about, oh, you write so well. Oh, you talk so, those types of, or even when I was talking about on Twitter over the weekend, this idea that I'm a magical person. And so when folks say to me, oh my God, can you work your magic? Or, oh my God, you're magic because you're able to fix this problem, or you're magic because of the way you're thinking about this right now. Your mind is so magical. And it's like, that kind of takes away my humanity and puts me this sort of spiritual place that the only way that I could solve this issue for you is by tapping into some mystical resource that I have from being a Black woman. And I hate that to the core. And I try my best to call that out as best as I can, because it's really important that folks see me as a human who's got 4 degrees and on her way to get a 5th one. And it's just amazing. Like I've done the work, and I'm an intelligent person. And so I think that do I think that things are getting better? I think that every day is a process. Everyone's on their different journey. And like I said, we have 140 folks that work in my organization. Not all 140 of those folks are on the same level as it relates to equity or diversity or inclusion. And that's how it is everywhere. I can speak for myself and say, like I say it all the time in the meetings that I lead as it relates to, DEI work. I am not always the best, ally, to folks of color that sit next to me, because I get so enthralled in my own narrative of being a Black woman that I don't know what an Asian woman might go through. But I do take the time to stop and learn. And I think that's the thing that folks need to do more of, is figuring out how to take the time to stop and learn. I'm not going to speak for you because I'm not an Asian woman, but I can stand beside you as a Black woman who understands microaggressions and racism and systematic racism in America. So I think we're moving, but it's all dependent on the individual and the system of which they are, complacent to.
Yeah. And I know, again, going off tangent, but I'm really, really interested in this. I think allyship, I'm certainly hearing the term allyship a lot more. What do you think that people can do to be better allies?
Yeah, so I think, like I said before, listening, it starts at the ground level. And that's one thing that I mentioned in our diversity, equity, inclusion class last semester. That was one of the questions folks had. It's like, how do I become a better ally? And it's like, I don't really like those kind of terms, because even in that, it's sort of like this checkbox. But if your question is, how do I better combat systemic racism so that folks that don't look like me have a better opportunity to be accepted and, well received and have equal playing field, then I think it starts with listening and not in putting your own narrative on other folks' narrative. So you can't, as a white person, tell me what my experiences are as a Black woman, or tell me that things don't happen, or mansplain or gaslight or whatever, any of those terms. It starts with listening, and listening to understand, not to combat or rebut or share an experience you've had or try to find commonality. And so I think that's really the part we need to get to, is getting back to the basics of listening. and
Yeah.
accepting that some screwy crap happened in this
Yeah.
country and
Yeah.
in other countries as well, and that the system and the concept of whiteness impacts us so much that it has outspread across this, this world, really, if you think about it. And the way that it shows up is in the simple fact that we can't even listen to someone else's experience and accept that that actually happens.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I think, I think it would be hopefully helpful for the listeners as well.